6 months ago, my world tilted on its axis. I discovered my husband, Marcus, was having an affair. The revelation was particularly cruel because just the day before, we'd celebrated our son Leo's 8th birthday. I can still picture it. Marcus beaming with paternal pride, presenting Leo with a brand new GoPro. "You're a year older now, son," he'd said, his voice a gentle lecture. "Time to be a responsible young man." Leo's face had been a mask of pure, unadulterated excitement. I'd even posted a heartfelt message on my social media feed. A snapshot of our seemingly perfect life. "Blessed with family and a thriving business," I'd captioned it. What more could a woman ask for? At my age, it truly felt like I had it all. Then reality, sharp and brutal, slapped me across the face. Hours later, under the guise of a client meeting, Marcus had driven off with a 20-year-old girl to a secluded hot spring resort for the night. This year marks our 10th wedding anniversary. 2 years into our marriage, Leo was born, and around the same time we launched Little Steps, our own brand of children's dance studios. We were the golden couple, balancing a flourishing business with a happy family. I'd been so proud back then. A walking testament against the notion that motherhood meant sacrificing one's career. Look at me, I thought. Everything's soaring. After the initial tough 3 years, our annual income had climbed into the high 6 figures, sometimes more. All those years of pride, of quiet contentment, now felt like a bitter joke. The pain of betrayal was a physical ache. That evening after the birthday festivities, Leo, buzzing with excitement, had immediately unboxed his GoPro. He and Marcus were huddled together, trying to figure out a particular feature. Men and their toys, I'd mused fondly. Boys till the end. Thinking I was being helpful, I picked up Marcus's phone, intending to search for the GoPro's instruction manual online. That's when a notification popped up from his messaging app. My new lingerie arrived. Do you have to be gentle tomorrow night? Okay? I froze, the phone suddenly heavy in my hand. Then another message flashed across the screen. You can't rip it like last time, promise. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the app. Before I could even tap on the chat, the grayed out word, image, appeared. My mind went blank, a chilling void. But curiosity, as they say, is a fatal flaw. I tapped the conversation, then the thumbnail. The image slowly buffered. A young woman, clad in a white, scandalously high-cut monokini, stared back at me from a mirror selfie. Her hands holding the phone obscured her face but strategically pressed against her ample breasts, hiding the essentials while accentuating a deep, shadowed cleavage. Her slender waist and, most damningly, her flat-toned abdomen, clearly one that had never borne a child, seemed to scream at me, "See? I'm young. I'm fresh." Numbly, I backed out of the chat, swiped left, and marked the conversation as unread, as if I could somehow erase what I'd just seen. I placed the phone back where I'd found it, my movements stiff and unnatural. Time, while it inevitably brings the weariness of age, also bestows the gift of experience. Right now, for instance, I was unnervingly calm. There was no need for self-persuasion. Composure had become a deeply ingrained habit. In the living room, Marcus and Leo were still engrossed in the GoPro. I walked upstairs to our master bathroom, filled the tub with steaming hot water, and sank into it. Vihor. Open a sheet mask. Ironically, one of those ex-boyfriend rescue masks, and smoothed it onto my face. I needed space, silence to think. Was this some cruel premonition? Divorce? The thought was a bitter pill. Marcus Kong, a 40-something balding, paunchy man, already looked like my sugar daddy when we stood side by side, despite me being his wife. If it weren't for the empire we'd built together, the wealth I'd largely helped accumulate, what capital would he have to attract such a young, eager girl? If I divorced him, wouldn't I be handing over the kingdom I'd fought to build? But not divorcing him? Could I live with the constant, gnawing disgust? Let Marcus use my hard-earned money, our joint assets, to lavish gifts on this child? Either way, it seemed I was destined to lose. By the time I'd finished my bath and skincare ritual, Marcus was already asleep, snoring soundly on his side of the bed, his back to me. His phone wasn't on the nightstand, he'd probably tucked it under his pillow. Before tonight, I might have found his snores endearing, a sign of a hard day's work. Now they sounded like a cacophony of 1,000 squawking ducks, grating on my last nerve. I inserted my noise-canceling earbuds, selected Green Island Serenade, a soothing, melancholic tune, and curled up on the chaise lounge by the window. I opened my messaging app and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I'd added a few months ago. Bunny Cloendersrexo. Yes, she was the girl in the white swimsuit. I knew her. I tapped on our chat history, the brief exchange jogging my memory. I hadn't even bothered to change her display name to her real one. She'd been that insignificant. Her message. Ms. Ho, good evening. This is Chloe-chan. I just interviewed for the assistant dance teacher position. My reply, hello. That was our first and only conversation. For months ago, she'd come in for an interview. She was undeniably pretty, danced well and possessed strong technical skills. But she hadn't gotten the job. The reason? I'd encountered her in the mall restroom just before her interview. She'd been impatient in the queue, and when a mother emerged from a stall with her young child, Chloe had muttered under her breath loud enough for me to hear. Why even bother bringing kids out? Just causing trouble for everyone dawdling around? I'd been standing behind her silent, but an urge to shove her into the nearest stall had surged through me. I rarely scrolled through my social media feed, and I certainly didn't recall anything Chloe had posted. 8 years ago at this very hour, I'd been in a delivery room, writhing in unimaginable pain. 8 years later my son was asleep in his room, clutching his beloved new GoPro, and I, serenaded by my husband's thunderous snores, was condemned to scroll through the social media feed of the young woman whose swimsuit he was apparently eager to tear apart. Life's ironies were truly something. Chloe, it turned out, was not one for discretion. She flaunted her sweet, illicit romance for all the world to see, carefully omitting only the identity of her benefactor. From her posts, I deduced their affair had begun 3 months prior. On their first date, they'd gone for steak. Dry-aged steak, the only kind I truly enjoyed. 90 days of air-drying, sacrificing the outer 40% of the meat to leave only the most succulent core. It was expensive, incredibly delicious. I figured, after all my hard work, I deserved such a luxury now and then. But Chloe, at 23, had casually partaken of it, courtesy of my husband. They'd also ordered Gillardeau oysters and champagne. The bill must have been upwards of $200 per person, easily $500 for the two of them. Half of that money was mine. Chloe had also been gifted a Porsche 718, a soft-top convertible, in that classic white body with a Bordeaux red roof that girls adore. In one photo, her long slender legs were artfully draped over the hood, a picture of youthful allure. Half the cost of that car was also mine. Chloe came from an ordinary family. I'd gleaned that much from her interview, but on her social media, she was the picture of a pampered heiress. The bitter realization that I was, in effect, a co-sponsor of this charade brought a mirthless smile to my lips in the dead of night. Could I, even now, turn the tables? A cold resolve began to form. Yes, I could. Dawn broke. I laid out an outfit for Marcus, one of his favorites. A purple polo shirt, navy blue trousers, and a pair of casual loafers plastered with a gaudy designer logo. Marcus genuinely believed this ensemble made him look younger, even going so far as to pop the collar of his polo. To any discerning woman, however, it screamed midlife crisis trying too hard. I usually avoided laying out this particular combination, but today, whatever made him happy. He adjusted his clothes, strapped on his most expensive watch, and preened in front of the mirror. Mr. Sterling and his team are heavy drinkers, he announced. I'll probably have to stay over tonight. It was 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Mr. Sterling? Right. What kind of business meeting was scheduled at such an hour? My expression remained placid. Don't drink too much. Take care of yourself. Come back tonight if you can. Sure. If I'm back, I'll help Leo with his homework. He agreed readily, his acting skills commendable. Okay. I smiled back, my own performance equally flawless. Then, just as I'd anticipated, Marcus drove off in his most expensive car. How could men be so monumentally stupid? Risking so much for a fleeting thrill with a girl reeled in by such obvious trappings. I followed my usual routine, checked the morning reports from our various dance studios, then dropped Leo off at his private tutoring session. Then I drove alone from the north side of the city to the east, to meet an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. The foundation of adult socializing is mutual benefit. My skills for your resources, my connections for your capital. So even though we hadn't been in touch for years, I knew she'd be willing to help me just this once. I stood in her company's office, walking past one live streaming studio after another. They were filled with either waifish, doll-like young women or tall, boyishly handsome young men. The currently popular pretty face streamers. My targets were these male streamers. But after surveying a veritable parade of handsome faces, none quite fit the bill. They all had the looks, but the avarice in their eyes was too blatant. My dear Ava, my classmate Jenna chuckled. Your standards are certainly high these days. How about this? Let's grab some lunch. You can people watch, get a fresh perspective, then come back and choose. You're probably overwhelmed by all the eye candy. I smiled and nodded. Sounds good. As we stepped into the elevator, a message from Marcus arrived. As I pressed the closed door button, his insincere voice message played in my ear. Don't wait up for me. I won't be back tonight. Not coming back is fine, I thought drily. Just don't die there, or all the assets become mine by default. Just as the irksome voice message ended, a loud voice called out, Hold the elevator. I pressed the open door button. A tall figure strode in. His fashion sense. 90 points. Physique? 90 points. He exuded a wild, untamed aura. A ruggedly handsome man, yet he possessed a pair of surprisingly innocent, round puppy dog eyes and a charmingly boyish pair of canine teeth when he smiled. Such contradictions in a man were often irresistible to women, sparking an intense desire to explore. Then he spoke politely. Morning, boss. So he was one of her male streamers. The elevator arrived at our floor. He held the door with one hand, turning sideways to let us exit first. He was clearly adept at treating women with consideration. This was the one I wanted. He's perfect. Why didn't you introduce him to me? I murmured to Jenna as we walked out. Him? Absolutely not. Jenna's voice suddenly dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. You said you needed models for your dance studios. Promotional posters. But you rejected all those recent dance academy graduates. I have a pretty good idea what you're really up to. If that's your plan, she continued, leaning closer, her expression deadly serious, then Finn is definitely not suitable. She paused for dramatic effect. He has an STD. I was momentarily stunned. Then I laughed for a full minute. So I was being treated like a wealthy older woman looking to pick out a boy toy. How amusing. Fortune, it seems, still favors the bold and the persistent. The problem that had been nagging me all morning suddenly found a solution. Finn's real name was Finn Xia, 27 years old. After graduating from a community college, he'd worked in bars before becoming a streamer. Honestly, his understanding of women was clearly forged in the fires of real-world experience. After getting Finn's number, I arranged to meet him 3 days later. On the third day, he arrived punctually. I sized him up. His entire outfit probably cost less than $100. Yet he sported the latest iPhone. Clever. Boy, most young women wouldn't recognize expensive, understated clothing, but they'd certainly spot the telltale triple camera of a new iPhone from a mile away. First, I took him to a high-end department store and bought him several new outfits. The kind where a plain white t-shirt cost upwards of $200. Then we went to a trendy salon for a new hairstyle, the kind favored by popular young celebrities. Finn didn't refuse any of it. In fact, he seemed rather excited as he carried the shopping bags. I hadn't even stated my purpose yet. I wondered what he was anticipating. Next, I took him to an apartment I'd had a realtor prepare in advance. A 200-square-meter luxury flat, a mere 5-minute walk from the city's central business district. The monthly rent, a cool $2,800. From the moment we entered the upscale complex, Finn looked bewildered. Inside the apartment, the realtor gave us a tour, mentioning the features and the rent. I didn't respond directly, instead turning to Finn. Do you like it? He stared at me, utterly shocked, and then after a long moment nodded slowly. Good. I turned back to the realtor. Could you give us a moment alone, please? The realtor, a seasoned professional, quickly excused himself, making sure to close the door firmly behind him. I produced a folder of documents and handed it to Finn. I need you to do something for me. Play the part of a rich heir. Seduce the beautiful woman in these files. This apartment will be yours for the duration. I'll cover all expenses. When it's done, I'll give you an additional $20,000 as a bonus. Finn looked completely stunned, clearly not expecting this. Then I held up Chloe's photo in front of his dazed face. Look, you're not exactly getting a raw deal. When Finn's gaze landed on the photo, a distinct flicker of interest crossed his eyes. Yes, beauty was a weapon and I could wield it just as effectively. Finn, perhaps fearing I'd see through his eagerness, hesitated for a long while before finally agreeing. I opened the door and called the realtor back in. I'll take it, but only for 3 months. The realtor looked hesitant until I offered an extra $2,000 as his commission. He readily agreed. I turned to Finn, emphasizing, remember 3 months to complete the task. Okay, sis. That sis from Finn sealed our collaboration. The next day, I took Finn to rent a Lamborghini Gallardo, a supercar befitting a rich heir, and in a completely different league from Chloe's Porsche 718. The moment Finn got the keys, his eyes lit up. After completing the paperwork, he eagerly took me for a spin. He parked on a quiet, tree-lined street and pulled out his phone, clearly wanting to take pictures. But with me there, he hesitated to take blatant selfies. Anything you can show off, I instructed. Do not post it on any social media. Not your feed, not your stories, nothing. Finn sheepishly put his phone away. Okay, sis. Then we drove directly to the gym downstairs from Chloe's workplace. It was an upscale fitness center with floor-to-ceiling glass walls. I settled into a cafe across the street, from where I could observe the sweaty occupants within. 6 o'clock. Chloe should be arriving soon. Chloe loved to play the field. Marcus was hardly her only target. This gym was one of her regular hunting grounds. Chloe appeared, dressed in overly tight workout gear, running on a treadmill. Her makeup was flawless, projecting an air of innocent purity that starkly contrasted with her lethal figure. The way her athletic pants clung to her, outlining the curve of her backside, made every man who passed her treadmill linger a little too long. She hadn't been running for long when a young, handsome guy hopped on the treadmill next to her, feigning a workout. Less than a minute later, he was trying to strike up a conversation. Chloe, sizing up his youth and average attire, clear indicators of limited financial capacity, shot him a disdainful look. Not interested in a membership, and not adding you on any app. A pro. A little later, Finn strolled over and started running on the treadmill next to Chloe's other side. Chloe glanced at Finn, then did a double take, clearly impressed by his appearance. And Finn? For a full half hour, he listened to music and ran, not giving Chloe a single glance. This, paradoxically, ignited Chloe's interest. Who said only men possessed the urge to conquer? Women did too. After their run, Finn went to the water cooler. Chloe followed. I expected a simple hi, but instead Chloe accidentally spilled a cup of ice water all over Finn. A masterstroke of feigned clumsiness. She'd clearly studied Wendy Dang's playbook. Then, they headed to the underground parking lot together. Beforehand, I'd instructed Finn to park the Gallardo right next to Chloe's 718. I imagined that as they walked to their cars together, Chloe's heart must have been doing somersaults. In less than 2 hours, Finn had Chloe's contact information, with Chloe herself initiating the exchange. During the first week of Finn and Chloe's friendship, Marcus's clandestine activities continued with undiminished frequency. The second week, Chloe proactively invited Finn to Disneyland. I almost laughed. She was practically a seasoned seductress, yet she chose such an innocent venue. At Disneyland, amidst the crowds, Chloe's Chanel bag was supposedly slashed. Finn, seizing the opportunity, used it as an excuse to make amends by immediately taking her to a boutique and buying her a Lady Dior bag worth over $4,000. Chloe's delight was plainly written on her face. That evening, Finn gallantly escorted Chloe home, deliberately dropping her off at the entrance to her apartment complex before pretending to leave. Because, as I knew, a persistent, rather desperate admirer had been waiting for Chloe downstairs from her apartment. This man, a Mr. Sutton, was a purchasing manager for a tech company in the same building as Chloe's dance studio. He was in his 30s, not particularly wealthy, but adept at putting on airs. He'd initially lavished expensive gifts on Chloe to win her over. However, after Chloe discovered he couldn't even afford a down payment on an apartment, she'd ruthlessly kicked him to the curb. Sutton wasn't one to take rejection lying down. He'd been staking out Chloe's place for days. Seeing her return, he immediately confronted her, demanding she return the 3 designer bags he'd bought her and the $3,000 he'd transferred to her. He grabbed her arm, threatening to call the police if she didn't pay up. The complex was in a bustling area. Even at 11 p.m., there were plenty of people around. Chloe wasn't scared. On the contrary, she adopted a haughty demeanor, her words dripping with sarcasm. Don't you understand what a gift is? Once you give it to me, it's mine. Stop harassing me, or I'll report you for sexual harassment. Sutton, predictably, was enraged and started dragging Chloe towards a darker alley. Finn, who had been watching from the shadows, rushed forward, pulled Sutton away and anxiously asked Chloe, "Are you okay?" Seeing Finn, Chloe's acting skills went into overdrive. Still wearing her Mickey Mouse ears from Disneyland, she looked every bit the poor, innocent girl being harassed by a shameless ex. After Finn, playing the chivalrous hero, chased Sutton away, Chloe asked tearfully, "Why did you come back?" Finn delivered his line with practiced smoothness. "I wanted to make sure you got upstairs safely." No matter how experienced Chloe was, that line broke through her defenses, stirring genuine emotion. Finn comforted her, then suggested that since her apartment was no longer safe with Sutton lurking, she could stay at his place for a few days. Chloe, of course, was overjoyed. After a show of token resistance, she accompanied Finn to his luxuriously furnished high-rise apartment. At 2 a.m., Finn reported his progress. "We're in bed." Finn didn't disappoint. From their first encounter to completely ensnaring Chloe, it took him just over a month. Throughout this charade, he played his part meticulously. Despite his own good looks and the numerous temptations around him, he remained devoted solely to Chloe. His handsome face, combined with the financial backing I provided, meant a constant stream of designer bags, jewelry, and high-end cosmetics flowed Chloe's way, as if they cost nothing. The gold digger was thoroughly smitten, completely oblivious to the fact that the later bags were all high-quality fakes. She'd even, surprisingly, bought Finn a few gifts herself. A rare plucking of feathers from a notorious cheapskate. However, Chloe was always shrewd. Even after establishing a relationship with Finn, she continued her affair with the unsuspecting Marcus, purely for financial gain. She expertly juggled both men, seamlessly switching between the roles of doting girlfriend and predatory mistress without missing a beat. A true master of her craft, I almost had to admire her audacity. We were in a discreet tea house planning the next phase when Chloe's syrupy voice message calling Finn honey played aloud from his phone. Finn didn't even try to hide it from me, letting the subsequent messages play out as well. In them, Chloe complained about her horrible boss, who was supposedly giving her a hard time and deliberately finding fault with her work. She mentioned 3 times how much she hated her current job. The hint was crystal clear. "Is she trying to get me to support her?" Finn asked me, a hint of exasperation in his voice. Should I agree? She's a big spender. By now, Finn understood the whole picture. He knew I was the wife whose marriage Chloe had wrecked. "Are you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Feeling sorry for my wallet?" "A little, maybe. She's spending your money with him, and now she'll be spending your money with me." Finn's observation made me laugh. I hadn't even thought of it that way. I leaned back, my gaze falling on his phone. Since she doesn't want to work, then she doesn't have to support her. That weekend, Marcus was scheduled to attend a conference in another city. Chloe would be there too. On the day of the expo, Chloe clung to Marcus's arm, strolling sweetly through the exhibition hall. Being out of town, they were far less discreet in their affectionate displays. I watched them from a corner of the hall, my emotions perfectly flat. Finn stood beside me, observing me. "Sis, this," he began. "Let's go," I said. That evening at the hotel where Marcus and Chloe were staying, Finn, according to plan, appeared downstairs with a bouquet of roses. "Babe," his text read, "I'm downstairs at your hotel. Which room are you in?" Before leaving, Chloe had told Finn she was going on a business trip that weekend. To maintain her cover, she'd even proactively given him her hotel address, never imagining that Finn, usually so compliant, would suddenly show up. Chloe, fresh from a shower, saw the message and panicked. Clutching her phone wrapped in a towel, she quickly called Finn. "Why are you here all of a sudden?" On the phone, Finn was calm and collected. "I realized I can't live without you. You've only been gone a day, and I miss you like crazy." Chloe's face, however, was pale. Her lover's sweet words now felt like immense pressure. I don't know how she explained it to Marcus, but she hurriedly dressed and went down to the lobby to meet Finn. In the hotel lobby, despite their hidden agendas, they greeted each other with a passionate kiss, a veritable inferno of feigned desire. Finn, looking impatient, suggested going up to Chloe's room. Chloe claimed she was sharing with a colleague and told Finn to get another room. "My colleague and I still have some work to finish. It'll probably take 2 or 3 hours. I'll come find you later, okay?" Finn, of course, readily agreed and dutifully waited in his own room. The Mission Impossible movies had nothing on this level of intrigue. Tom Cruise himself couldn't outplay Chloe. Before Chloe went downstairs to meet Finn, she and Marcus had only been in their room for about 18 minutes. Hardly enough time for anything significant. So for her to appease the older man now, she would undoubtedly have to service him first. After Chloe turned to go back upstairs, Finn followed her at a distance and saw her enter room 8514. 20 minutes later. Ding dong. The doorbell of room 8514 chimed. A hotel staff member delivered the roses Finn had specially ordered for Chloe. Finn stood beside the attendant, beaming, the picture of a boyfriend eager to surprise his girlfriend. Instead of Chloe, a man's angry shout came from within. "Who is it?" The attendant froze, glanced at Finn, and unsure what to say, resorted to a standard professional line. "Good evening, room service." "I don't need any service. Go away." The attendant at a loss looked awkwardly at Finn. At this point, Finn's expression as planned turned cold. He angrily pressed the doorbell again repeatedly. Marcus, looking thoroughly irritated, flung open the door demanding of Chloe, "Did you order room service?" The two men met for the first time staring at each other. Marcus in particular looked completely clueless. Ignoring Chloe's deathly pale face, Finn launched into his stellar performance. He scowled, threw the flowers at them and then swung a fist at Marcus. Marcus naturally was no match for him and was quickly knocked to the ground. Finn then glared at Chloe and stormed off. The collision of the Titanic, Marcus, and the luxury yacht Finn. Chloe naturally scrambled to salvage the Titanic. Oblivious to the fact she was only wearing a bathrobe, she chased after Finn. When she caught up to him downstairs, he'd deliberately not gone far. She found him chain-smoking, the very picture of a dejected, cuckolded man. He looked even more convincing in the role than I would have. Chloe, despite the damning evidence, possessed an iron constitution. She coolly wove a tale of woe. In her story, she was the innocent White Lotus, forced into a compromising situation due to her poor family background. Her two-timing was merely a way of repaying a brother figure who had been very supportive of her career. She claimed to have no feelings for Marcus. It was he who had shamelessly pursued her. "Honey, you have to believe me," she sobbed, nestled like a small frightened rabbit in Finn's arms. "He's a major client of the company. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd misunderstand. But I never expected him to do this, to trick me into coming to the hotel. If you hadn't come just now, I really would have." Finn continued his act, pretending to be convinced. "Really? Then call him right now. Tell him you have a boyfriend, and tell him to get lost." "But he's a major client. What about my job?" Chloe feigned hesitation. Finn played along. "So what? Quit. I'll support you." At these words, Chloe's face lit up. Though she still feigned reluctance to hold on to Finn, she had no choice but to call Marcus, her tone cold and dismissive. I imagine Marcus on the other end of the line was apoplectic. He probably smashed the hotel room tea, his go-to move when enraged. After returning from the conference city, Chloe quit her job. To make this kept woman scenario more convincing, on the first day she moved in with Finn, I had him give her $8,000 as an allowance, promising more if her performance continued to be good. Chloe was ecstatic when she saw the bank transfer notification, and immediately dragged Finn out for a shopping spree. After they left, I used my spare key to enter the apartment. Seeing that the items I prepared earlier were still in place, I felt a sense of relief. Although the plan had been flawless so far, Finn was such a natural actor that sometimes even I couldn't tell if he was being genuine. A sliver of unease pricked at me. I hadn't entirely dismissed the possibility of him double-crossing me. After all, pretty boys with silver tongues weren't known for their loyalty. As for Chloe, I had to admit she was a formidable opponent, certainly resourceful. With such a strong adversary, I needed a backup plan to ensure my scheme proceeded without a hitch. Marcus had been moody ever since returning from the conference, constantly checking his phone, his brow furrowed. I knew exactly what was wrong, and a wave of contempt washed over me. A man in his 40s still believing he'd found true love. Thought was embarrassing. He'd taken his mistress on a trip, only to discover she had another boyfriend, who then proceeded to beat him up. He couldn't swallow that humiliation. He tried to confront Chloe directly, only to find she'd blocked him. Thoroughly enraged, Marcus reported his Porsche 718 stolen. Yes, the car was registered in his name. At least he wasn't a complete idiot. He knew to keep valuable assets under his own ownership. Chloe was summoned to the police station. Finn naturally found an excuse to accompany her. When Finn called me, Chloe was in the midst of a shrill tirade against Marcus. "You gave me that car. I didn't steal it. Why should I return something you gifted me? Look at yourself. I'm 20 years younger than you. You were the one harassing me." Even sniffle sob. I couldn't quite make out the rest, but I knew Chloe wouldn't be saying anything pleasant. After hanging up, a strange emptiness settled over me. By all accounts, I should consider this a success. Chloe was finally out of Marcus's life. Yet seeing my husband of many years, the man I'd built a life with, so thoroughly humiliated by a young girl, brought me no sense of triumph, only a profound sadness at the way things had turned out. But the chess game was already in motion. Even I couldn't call stop now. "Marcus, you betrayer, this is not yet your lowest point." That day I stayed out late. When I returned, Marcus was in the living room dejectedly drinking. I observed him coldly for a while before sitting down opposite him. Marcus, we need to talk. He looked up, his eyes glazed and unfocused, seemingly unsure what this conversation would entail. I threw a stack of photographs onto the table between us. You're having an affair? Panic instantly flared in Marcus's eyes. He glanced at me then stammered, "Honey, listen to me." His face paled, his lips trembled, but no words came out. His eyes were filled with an apology he couldn't articulate. "Marcus, we've been together for 10 years. I began, my voice thick with emotion. I never imagined this day would come. Tears streamed down my face as I spoke, my voice catching in sobs. The last time Marcus had seen me cry was in the delivery room with Leo. He was clearly flustered, staring blankly for a moment before suddenly dropping to his knees, clutching my legs and begging for forgiveness. "Honey, I was wrong. I lost my mind. I'm a terrible person. I'll never, ever do it again." His voice was sincere, and he even began to slap himself across the face hard. I didn't answer, just continued to weep. This particular tactic I'd learned from Chloe. That night, Marcus begged me for forgiveness for hours. I knew his remorse was genuine, but I also knew that for men, once the wound heals, the pain is often forgotten. Later, alone in the bathtub, I sent Finn a message. "You can proceed with the final step." I wasn't surprised when Chloe's call came. At that moment, Marcus and I were at the aquarium with Leo watching the dolphins. Although I'd ceased all marital intimacy with Marcus since discovering his affair, we never neglected Leo. Since our official showdown, Marcus had started to change. No matter how busy he was at work, he made time for Leo and me. He even noticed when I switched to a new body lotion a few days ago, leaning in to whisper, "Honey, did you change your skincare? This scent is lovely." These were things he'd never paid attention to before. But it was too late. Marcus flinched when he saw Chloe's name on his caller ID, but he quickly and ruthlessly declined the call. He then turned to Leo, pointing out the different types of fish swimming overhead. Last week, the final step I'd instructed Finn on was to leave Chloe. The persona he'd cultivated was entirely fabricated, so his disappearance left no trace. He canceled the lease on his apartment, deactivated his phone number, transferred the promised $20,000 to him, and advised him to lie low in another province for a while. Chloe couldn't find Finn. Then she discovered that all those luxury items were fakes. Finally, she realized she'd been played. But she recovered quickly. One man down, thousands of potential replacements waiting in the wings, as long as she was still beautiful enough. And Marcus was the foolish backup she now sought to reconcile with. Unfortunately for her, Marcus didn't answer her calls. That evening back home, Chloe persistently sent text messages while Marcus was in the shower. When he came out, his expression was unreadable. He opened the messages in front of me and handed me the phone. Chloe had really pulled out all the stops. She claimed she was pregnant with Marcus's child. I looked at Marcus, saying nothing, my eyes questioning his next move. Marcus thought for a moment, then stood before me and dialed Chloe's number. His voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. "You know perfectly well whose child that is. If you insist on saying it's mine, I'll pay for the abortion. But after that, we have nothing more to do with each other." He then blocked all of Chloe's contact methods. However, a few days later, while Marcus was playing with Leo in the living room, his phone received another text message. "If you don't come see me today, I'll expose all your dirty secrets. We can all go down together." A few seconds later, another message followed. "Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. I'll be waiting for you at Swan Lake Park. If you don't come, I'll jump." The number was unfamiliar, but I knew it was Chloe. To prove his innocence, Marcus insisted I accompany him. Chloe was indeed waiting in a poorly lit, secluded area of the park. I watched from the car. Chloe was highly agitated. I could even hear her shouting, "Then you just wait. Neither of us is getting out of this easily." Then, following Marcus's gaze, she saw me in the car. Enraged, she ran to the passenger side window and unleashed a torrent of vile abuse at me. A mistress cursing out the wife. I couldn't fathom where she found the audacity, probably sheer stupidity, but I remained completely unfazed. Chloe's current state, eyes red and swollen, hair disheveled, her face contorted with a hideous mixture of grievance, resentment, and fury, was satisfaction enough for me. I once again congratulated myself on my composure when I'd first discovered the affair. Otherwise, I might have been the one looking like Chloe did now. After Marcus and I drove away, he apologized profusely. He'd witnessed the verbal lashing I'd endured. As the instigator of this whole mess, he was now consumed by guilt. But his apologies felt like empty air. endlessly echoing in the small car, making me nauseous. It's over. Don't think about it, I said dismissively. Only then did he fall silent. Seeing Marcus unmoved, Chloe decided to torment me directly. She initiated a video call. The moment I answered, Chloe's accusatory voice filled the air. Are you happy now, watching me lose everything? I laughed. When you were busy being a mistress destroying someone else's family, didn't you consider this outcome? But Chloe felt no remorse. Instead, she laughed contemptuously. So what if I did? I got what I wanted. I'm calling you today to tell you that I still have some evidence of your husband's affair. If you don't want to jeopardize the company you built together from scratch, give me $500,000. The moment the money arrives, I'll disappear and never bother you again. It was like listening to a joke, especially since Chloe, despite her feigned composure, couldn't hide the tremor in her voice. Little girl, I said calmly, who exactly are you planning to send this evidence to? My colleagues, our clients, our parents. Little girl, don't you use your brain? Is Marcus Kong the only man in the world who has ever cheated? What kind of storm can your little tidbits possibly stir up? We're not a publicly listed company afraid of this kind of scandal. A simple statement from me, something along the lines of cherish what you have and move forward, will stabilize the situation. It's quite simple. And furthermore, little girl, I've had you thoroughly investigated. Do you think releasing videos of Marcus's affair will harm him more? Or would me posting videos of you sleeping with Marcus and then sleeping with Finn online create a bigger explosion? I didn't mention that Finn was my pawn, only that I'd investigated her. Why arm a madwoman with more information than necessary? Chloe was clearly frightened. I could even hear her sharp intake of breath. She stammered. You. For a long moment, as if her throat had been squeezed shut, unable to utter another word. A wave of pure, unadulterated satisfaction washed over me. My meticulous planning, all these months of silent scheming had, as always, resulted in a decisive counterattack. She wasn't even a worthy opponent. The sound of her sobbing grew louder in my ear. But I felt no pity. This girl was crying over her loss, not her wrongdoing. I am no saint. On the contrary, I'm an ordinary person who believes in an eye for an eye. One last thing, I said, my voice like ice. Your precious Finn has been to a men's health clinic. He has an STD. Then I ended the call and blocked her number. When I got home, Marcus had prepared a full dinner and was waiting for me. After I sat down, I stared at him intently. He grew increasingly uneasy under my gaze. Honey, what's wrong? Chloe just called me. She cursed me out for a long time. What? But that's not important. What's important is, she told me, she has an STD. I recounted a modified version of my conversation with Chloe to this foolish middle-aged man who lusted after young girls. Marcus froze, his face a mask of horror. I watched every flicker of emotion on his face, not wanting to miss a single one. Chloe had been sexually active with Finn, who had an STD, and with Marcus concurrently. How could Marcus not be infected? This man, always so self-assured, so focused on his own pleasure, rarely bothered with protection. Marcus remained stunned for a long time. Then, with a roar of fury, he swept his arm across the table, sending all the dishes crashing to the floor. Bitch! Filthy bitch! He cursed, referring to Chloe or perhaps Finn. Without another word, I walked upstairs. Marcus Kong, you cheated and you played yourself right into this mess. How does it feel? 3 days later, my secondary SIM card, the one I used for operations, received a text message. It was from Finn, who had apparently returned from his out-of-province hiatus. Sis. I didn't reply. He called, but I didn't answer. I didn't know what he wanted to say, nor did I care to find out. I removed the SIM card from the burner phone and tossed it into the trash can labeled hazardous waste.